Um, but kind of like based on what you said, I and kind of our conversation from earlier, could you talk to me about like, in your opinion, the importance of advanced degrees, right? What is happening in this space? Because I was talking to Carter, whom you know. Carter is in computer science. He focuses on surveillance. I just mentioning that for the audience because Carter is already aware. But I remember talking to him about his PhD process and kind of where he is and like what the objective is. And for him, he was like, we have to create something new. I must build something that is not in existence right now. And kind of the same thing for Timmy, who you also know, who is in cellular molecular biology. I have to make a new scientific discovery or add to the understanding of the scientific platform or some chain of a scientific branch in a new way or expand. That is what their research and scholarship is doing within. It's so hard to articulate your own work, right? Within my research and scholarship, we're looking at the ethics, parameters, protocols of things that are being created. How do people interact in this space? Why is it important? What do we need to change? Right? What do we see coming in the like? These are big questions that need time and focus and like research, well researched information. Um, and a lot of times, I feel like people don't understand what is happening or what type of research we're trying to make happen in this space outside of us teaching, you know what I'm saying, undergraduate. I would say mostly undergraduate students because I feel like when you get into that master space, we kind of get into a creation together space, even though you're still guiding. But like, I think that most people think when they think about a person with an advanced degree and the type of work that they do on a campus, they think about what they don't think about the right thing. I think that is my point, right? And having been a K through 12 educator as opposed to a college educator, I think that a lot of times the understanding of what is happening is overlapped, right? And in advanced scholarship, I would just like for you to explain to us what is happening in this space. Why should a person get an advanced degree? That's a conversation we just had. Right? I just saw a podcast or a post where a chick was like, you don't need another advanced degree, right? I told you my cousin was like, Chy'Na, you have enough degrees. It's okay. We know that you're smart. No more degrees, right? You're good, right? And I love school. I love research. I love education. I get my degrees so that I can be in an environment behind a paywall that gives me access to the equipment, the information, the knowledge, the traveling, the everything that I need to in order to accumulate, maintain, and grow knowledge. Right. And when you don't have access to those things, it's almost impossible, or it's really, really difficult, right? I think of people who don't choose that path as oftentimes as street or community scholars. And when you're doing street and community scholarship, that path is much longer, right? It takes 20 years to do what I can do, 50 year lifetimes, right? To do what I can often accomplish, you know what I'm saying, within 5 to 6 years in a PhD setting with certain information. Does that make sense? Could you explain it differently, maybe?
I mean,
Like,
you're tackling really, complicated, like complex questions here. So I'll try a couple ways into to answering it. And I mean, one, let's talk about the motivational angle. So I
mm,
would say, you just described why you're motivated to pursue the studies that you're pursuing right now. You, for better lack of phrasing here, it's like you want to be on that campus. You want to be in that space. You want to have those conversations. You want to be sitting in those lectures, giving those lectures, writing that scholarship. That's where you want to be. So that's a really good motivating factor. So I would say if anyone is thinking about pursuing higher level education, like you have to really love what it is that you're doing. And I think loving, if it's academia, then higher level degrees are the only way you're going to be allowed into that area, into that discipline, into that space. Um, so for the stuff that like Carter and your other friends are working on, they're tackling high level questions that demand highly specialized knowledge, skill sets, expertise. So the only way to do that, or I'd say the primary way of getting at that is a higher degree, is a high level degree, is a PhD or a master's. So if you're tackling those high level questions, then you need a high level degree. You know, um, so it's absolutely necessary in that case. I think there are going to be plenty of folks who would carve out a life for themselves that they can achieve through going to trade school.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of a broader conversation that we're having in this country right now, and that's been ongoing in places like Germany for a long time. And in Germany, I'm not sure if this is where you wanted this conversation to go, but this is where it's
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Um, okay, in Germany, there's a a very long like historical, um, cultural, um, place for the trade school,
Mm-hmm.
and trade schools in Germany come along with a level of respect and dignity, and I'd say like monetary compensation that
Mm-hmm.
is just foreign to us here in this country. I'm speaking in really broad terms, but I don't think I don't think we have the respect for trade schools here in this country
Mm-hmm.
that they have for trade schools in Germany. And there's like
I agree.
historical reasons for that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that their setup actually makes a lot of sense
Mm-hmm.
because both types of schooling and the professional opportunities, the professional solutions that those people are searching for to real world problems, all those professional opportunities exist out in the world. And so if we all were pursuing high level PhDs for these highly specialized solutions to very specific problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we're kind of missing out on all this other education that does need to be taking place to address all these other problems that are coming up in the world, right? And so we need trade schools. And I think one thing that a conversation that should be happening in a much more widespread way, but certainly is bubbling up at the time, is like, what is the place of trade schools in American culture today? And how do we shift the culture and shift the educational system to allow for the trade school option to not only be more accessible, but also, I guess, like in terms of available options out in the world, but also to be more accessible as like a cultural next step after high school, right? Because
100%.
I think a lot of people come from a high school environment where it's either school or no school, right? It's either like college of some kind, university of some kind, or nothing. And I don't. I come from a high school in Southern California, and again, that's a certain demographic. It's a specific demographic, but there was no discussion of trade school. And
Mm.
it's like if there are 1,500 kids graduating from high school, there are going to be some kids who are going to need to go to a trade school. I mean, just like you know, the the numbers game would say, we probably need some trade school people there, right?
100%. Could you name just for us what some trade degrees or trade programs might be so that we're all on the same page? Like what would a trade school? Yeah.
You would study to be an electrician.
Mm-hmm.
You'd study to be perhaps someone in IT,
Mm.
right? If you went into any sort of like mechanics or mechanical,
Welding.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, you want to become a welder, you need to go to a trade school of some kind. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, welders make a ton of money, right?
Okay.
And electricians do really well, right?
Yeah.
But we don't have a cultural kind of wavelength that addresses that, or that, kind of raises that sort of position up to the place where it probably should be